When I first signed up for TVB, I thought the hardest parts of the program would be not having my phone, bathing in a river, and the sketchy toilet situation. I'm not gonna lie, when I started looking forward to using airport bathrooms, I knew I had reached a dark place. As it turns out, all those things were relatively easy when compared to spending 7 months with a group of people I had never met before. As a group, the TBB cohort has talked about almost every topic you can imagine. I think our most frequented subject is the night we all met. While by the end of Ghana, I was wanting another topic during bus rides or happy hours, the first impressions we had of one another were quite entertaining. I remember driving to Washington, D.C., stressing about how much of myself to show to these strangers. While the other students weren't the most intimidating bunch, I was petrified pulling up to the hotel, petrified of being myself, petrified of sharing who I was. Part of me was scared I didn't even know who I was, or whether or not I would like him. The truth is, at that moment, the reason I didn't know how much of myself I was going to share was that I was struggling with opening up about being gay. I have struggled in the past of showing that part of myself, given that I do have the choice to hide it. During my senior year of high school, I told my parents and a couple friends, but I still actively hid that part of myself to the majority of my community. Being queer is both a blessing and a curse because it is hideable. Ultimately, I can control how much I show. While this allows me to morph myself to be normal in any social setting, it also comes with having a large internal struggle of whether to be honest. In the car ride to DC, I talked with my mom about the opportunity TVB could be for me to start being open and honest about who I really am. 7 months corralled with a group of 8 other students, I viewed this as a once in a lifetime opportunity, a case to discover who I was and to see if I liked that person. But why was I so stressed to be myself? In Guatemala, we did an activity in which we chose a few characteristics that held the most value to us. My third most important attribute was adaptability, a skill I valued up until then and had gotten very, very good at. My value on adaptability, combined with my theatrical training throughout middle and high school, made me a fake and convertible version of myself. I tried to be different to each person, showing a varied part of myself that I thought would gain the most validation. I told myself that being true to me would reduce my likability. I drove to DC with an emphasis on adaptability and pleasing others, combined with an aching to discover and show myself. How could I achieve both these things? Be myself and be liked by all? Is it possible for others to like me if I didn't like me? My reluctance to be honest about who I am was closely tied with the need to seek approval from others. If I sought all my self-worth from others, could I really feel good about myself in the end? Similarly, if I didn't really like myself for who I was, how much could anyone else really like me? I had tied my self-worth to external validation, and I was worried that revealing my true self would result in the end of my likability. For as long as I can remember, this has been a struggle for me. My parents have counseled me for years that it is important to find a source of confidence that comes from within. After each conversation with them, I would leave asking myself, how am I supposed to do that? I struggled thinking about how to garner confidence from within and not to look for others for validation. Signing up for TBB, I had the chance to be a part of a group that could not choose whether or not to be with me. This gave me a sense of comfort when thinking about being myself. There would be no escape for me, or more importantly, for anyone else. I decided on that car ride to DC to stop hiding who I really am. Deciding to stop hiding and actually doing it turned out to be two very different things, the latter much harder than the former. In one of our very first Who Am I seminars, we put pieces of paper on trees that reference different parts of our identity: race, religion, socioeconomic status, gender, and of course, sexual orientation, were some of the 10 or so words taped onto trees. The activity went as follows. Aaron or Candace would say a statement like, "What defines you the most? What are you most embarrassed of? What do you think about most often?" After each question, all of the students would walk to the designated tree that held the part of their identity which matched Aaron and Candace's question. The first statement was called, and I stood there looking at the sexual orientation tree, while my feet took me towards the socioeconomic status tree. I thought to myself, what am I doing? I had promised to myself to be honest, but exposing myself in front of others felt painful. As the second question came, I willed myself to start being more honest, so I leaned towards the sexual orientation tree. It took several questions to make my feet do as my brain was commanding and actually walk to the tree. As I stood there, I wondered, did people care? Did anyone even notice? The answer to the second was yes. The answer to the first was less clear. What was clear was that I cared much more than anyone else and was thinking about it much more than anyone else was, or ever would. Truthfully, I had worked incredibly hard to ignore that part of myself, and being honest about my sexuality in front of 10 people was an abrupt change. I remember the next day feeling relieved that I had put everything on the table. I had nothing left to hide. By sharing all of myself with this group of 10, I had taken one of the most important, concrete steps in my life to moving away from trying to be someone I am not. I am sure you are aware of the term out as it relates to people who are gay, but I doubt many of you have thought a lot about what out really means. On the one hand, it definitely means out, as in disclosed and public. But on the other hand, it also means out, as in out in the open, exposed, and vulnerable. Being honest felt really good, but being exposed felt quite scary. Meanwhile, something else was underway that was not in my original personal development plan. While entering the program, I had been fixated on making peace with my identity and being out and honest. But there still were a variety of other important elements about myself also undergoing significant change and development. In some ways, I had been so focused on how bad I had it with my identity issues that before the program, I really did not understand how good I had it in almost every other way. This observation was reinforced time and time again from country to country and situation to situation. From working side by side with farmers in Guatemala who earned $11 a day to watching someone give birth to a baby in Ghana with no medical training. The entire experience was filled with one eye-opening moment after another. I suppose I have always known that my circumstances were better than average, but I had no direct sense for what that meant or how much better they really were. In truth, all Americans are amazingly privileged, and I am more privileged than many. Realizing my good fortune was helpful, but not overly powerful. However, gaining a true awareness of my own privilege at a deep and personal level feels powerful and, more importantly, enabling. It's one thing to feel like making a positive contribution to the world is a good idea, but it's another thing entirely to be compelled to drive global societal change because you realize it's your moral obligation. Wrestling with being out was the most personal issue I entered the program with. But coming out of the program, I can honestly say that my most significant change was in understanding my place and standing in the world at a fundamental level and embracing all the responsibility that comes with it. For me, the combination of TVB's vulnerability-based curriculum, the 10 people surrounding me, and the variety of individuals I met on the journey allowed me to discover my identity and my privilege. I am immensely grateful for each student. You all showed me unconditional love in times when I did not deserve it. You gave me a reason to smile each day. You allowed me to be comfortable with myself. Thank you. I love you all. I am also so grateful for Aaron and Candace, who supported my journey every step of the way. Whether that be at highs or lows, both of you never left my side throughout our time together. Your mentorship has provided comfort in places I never thought I would be comfortable. Thank you. After finishing the program, I still believe my sentiment from the car ride to DC remains true. There was no better time or place for me to experiment with being myself. I am so thankful I decided to do so. I came into the program unsure of who I was or whether I really liked myself, in part because I had been leading a life of curating the truth of my identity. I honestly don't know what I will do in life, but I am sure that these 2 lessons I learned on TVB will be integral to my development as an agent of change. Thank you.
Yay!
Oh, Mason, thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Kelly. Sorry, my nose is running. I have a cold, so apologies.
It's okay. All right. Do we have any questions for Mason? Thank you, Aaron. Yes. All right. So Zach says, thanks for being so vulnerable. Did you discover anything about yourself that was surprising to you over the program?
I think over the program, I was both discovering what I was passionate about. I'm a twin, if you didn't notice. And so if you didn't know, sorry.
How would we know that?
And so I've always had like a keen awareness of fairness. Is his slice of cake bigger than mine? Is mine bigger than his? Like the constant comparison has made me always think of fairness, but I didn't know which social movement, which issue I was passionate about. And I went into the program knowing that and wanting to discover more and like see more issues. And so I think that was probably my biggest discovery. And I honestly still don't know. Like, I'm going to go to college and take classes that help me narrow that focus. But like having such a hands-on perspective and impression, I think was really helpful for my like development as a change maker.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. We have another question from Robin. So does the responsibility to contribute to change in the world feel like a heavy weight?
I'd say I think after the program, I appreciate everything I have so much more. But I know that my awareness of it means that I have a responsibility to do something about it. And I think that does feel heavy in terms of how am I supposed to, as a 19-year-old with no college degree, make a big change in the world? And I have debated, like, throughout the program, I have thought, okay, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to study economics, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then eventually I'm going to have the capability and power to make a change. And I think I have so much right now that I can make a change. And so feeling like the weight of every decision that I can make now could help somebody, I think is heavy, but I don't think it's empowering too. And like I feel like a better human with it.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Robin says beautifully said. Right on. Good, good. We have another question from Amy Berkeley. Do you think vulnerability will play a role in your future educational goals?
Yes. I think I am currently planning on going to college being as vulnerable as I can. And I think part of why TVB was so special to me was because it was a tight-knit group. We were all close, and I know I won't be able to replicate that, but I feel like I've never really been closer with people because of my choice to be vulnerable. And in pursuing higher education, like having relationships, I I view as the most, like, I think I get most of my satisfaction as a human from my relationships with others. And so going into college with a lot of strangers, I'm planning on being as vulnerable as I can.